workshops in the past, but people have suffered from FOMO, which is fear of missing out. So what we've decided to do is remove the choice for you and actually have everyone in for our workshops. That means you won't suffer from choice paralysis, and we can all enjoy these really valuable times together. Now, to introduce our first workshop presenter, I want to say that some people are armchair experts. You might know some of those people. They know their stuff, but it's more some self-confessed ones here. But in a way, it's more an intellectual exercise than something they've personally experienced. Other people are wheelchair experts. They've actually experienced the thing that they've actually gained some expertise in. And they bear the marks of that, and it develops into a real passion for them to address. Now, Andrea Hamilton-Vaughan has 20 years experience in road safety behavioural change programs. Her passion for road safety had early beginnings, and it sprang from a deeply personal experience. In 2022, Andrea launched the national version of Driver Fatigue Week, and she's a recognised leader in the field of road and transport safety. She's going to speak to us today concentrating on safety for seniors, and we are very honoured to have her join us this afternoon. Could you welcome Andrea?
Thank you for that very kind introduction. I'd also like to acknowledge Elizabeth Griffin, who is here today, who was instrumental in asking me, inviting me to participate. And I'm so glad to participate in the University of the Third Age because older drivers there's a bit of a myth around older drivers, that the moment you get a bit older, all of a sudden you become a dreadful driver, that you are a blight on society and that you're all the ails and problems of the world. If you are a good driver in your 20s and 30s, there is nothing to suggest, there is no evidence from the scientific community to say that you will not be still a good driver. Alright? Then having said that, there are some data to support, and we will go over the reasons for that, people aged over 75 years are 3 times more likely to be killed in a crash than people in their 20s. Does anyone can hazard a guess, those armchair experts, why they're more likely to be a fatality? Sorry? Medical issues, but more feeble, a fragile body. The older we get, we can't escape it. We don't bounce back like we used to. The risk increases for people aged 85 or over, who are at least 4 times more likely to be killed. Crash patterns for older drivers are significantly different for those of other age groups. The most common crashes for drivers aged 80 and older are colliding with another vehicle at an intersection when turning a right across traffic, and rear of vehicle, rear end crashes. Studies show that many older people compensate for their declining driving competency by limiting their driving and only driving in local areas, avoiding complex, difficult situations. Now, those 2 types of crashes, there could be another underlying reason that could be solved and prevent you from falling into those 2 things. Now, one, turning right in front of someone, that's a gap selection problem. You know, you can't judge the speed. People at 30 have a trouble of judging the speed of oncoming traffic. What do you think could possibly be the underlying problem for rear end crashes and turning in front of them? Did you say sight? Sight? You're 110% correct. Just recently, I was at a conference and I was squinting at the dais, and I was thinking, and someone's, and I thought, oh, it's funny, that's not focusing too well. And then someone said to me, gee, you're looking daggers at such and such. And I said, what are you talking about? She's a friend of mine. And then, once someone mentions something to you, it's amazing how all of a sudden you start to notice these things. And then I'm driving between Orange and Parks, and I saw the sign, and I know what that sign said. I thought, I can't read that sign. So I thought I better, and I hadn't had my eyes tested for 7 years, I thought I better go and have an eye test. Lo and behold, I had cataracts. And yet 12 months prior, I had passed my driver's license test and the eyesight test and got full marks. Now, once you start to get cataracts, your eyesight, they can get worse very quickly in some cases. And in my case, and it's so, what's the word? It's like looking through life as a Monet painting. The edges get a bit blurred and you don't notice it. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, if you're thinking, oh, well, my driving's not that good, your eyesight is absolutely critical to safe driving, and you need to get your eyes checked once a year. It's free of charge, it's bulk billed and all that sort of thing. And if your optometrist happens to tell you that you need, you've got cataracts, then you need to seek a medical opinion. Don't just take it for granted, oh, you'll be right for a few years. The surgeon took one look at my eyes and said, no, they've got to go. And it was like, looking through that curtaining, that thin curtaining in between curtains. I don't know. Sorry? Lace. Yeah, it was like having that removed back. So when as soon as I read this and looking at my statistics, I thought, well, no wonder these things are happening to older people, and you don't have to be old. I said to the surgeon, I'm too young to have cataracts. In my own mind I am, not his. And he said, oh, don't be silly. He said, I've had people at the age of 18 with cataracts. So it's not just age, it's predominantly age, but it can be the kind of life you've lived, being out in the bright sunshine all the time, whatever. And the good thing about cataracts is they don't grow back. So when you're looking at trying to be a safer driver, you need to have all your ducks in a row to be a safer driver, to follow the road rules, to follow the to drive to the conditions, to take care. But if you can't see, you're not going to do a good job. So all licence holders, once they get over 75, they have a set of rules. And like everything else, and one of the great research scientists, pulled me aside one day, and I said something about older drivers, and she said to me, Andrea, there is no evidence for that. There is no evidence for this. There's no evidence for that. She said, I'm leading a world authority on it. She said, we're frightening older people into not driving. And now I look back on it, and with the eyesight situation, maybe your glasses, maybe you only need to wear glasses to read, but your eyesight has degraded just little bits by little bits, which makes you get used to it, and you don't realise it's getting worse. Well, that's what happened in my situation, until it's bad. Okay, that's enough about eyesight. But so over 75, heavy vehicle drivers, after 80, they need to get their licence renewed. One of the things, especially if you live in a place like Sydney or in other very, very robust vehicles, built up populations, is to use a modified licence. And that means that you will only drive under certain conditions. You know, driving from here to Sydney, it's not a bad drive, but once you get into the Blue Mountains, and there's, you know, speed limit changes every 5 minutes, and then you get into the freeways, and they're chopping and changing lanes because they're used to it. You're not used to it. You live in Orange or Bathurst or Parks or wherever. You're not used to that people chopping in and out. It can be quite frightening. It can be quite distressing. So, you know, for someone who is going to Sydney for a medical appointment, it may be better to drive to Lithgow and get the training. That's what we call modifying your license, but also your lifestyle. I suggest to, and I've done many of these talks around even Orange, that if you've got an appointment with the doctor, you don't make the first appointment in the day. You wait till all the mums have dropped off their kids at school, everybody else is at work, and you pick an appointment when traffic, even though it'll still be a bit of a challenge from time to time, but you don't do it in peak hour. The same as afternoon. There are more crashes between 3 and 6 on our road network than at any other time of the day, regardless of age. So being selective, being road safety wise, to help you have a safer journey, may be modifying when and how you use the road network. And it's not just driving, you've also driving and other vehicles. You've got to watch for pedestrians. How many times have you seen a pedestrian walk out in front of you and you've got to slam the brakes on? Happened to me in Summer Street, a lady of a certain age. I was going to park out there near the chemist, and she just decided to walk out. I was stopped, that's fine. And she didn't look. And if it wasn't for the 40k speed zone and the Jaguar car that had just turned right out of Anson Street, heading up Summer Street, he hadn't got his speed up, he would have hit her. She didn't look. And as a driver, you know, we are at fault. You can't go around mowing down pedestrians. If we're pedestrians, we have to be careful too, because everyone in this room either drives a car or is a pedestrian at some stage, and crossing the street has risk in Orange. Some of our streets are very wide, which is good for some reasons, but also a challenge for a pedestrian. That's why council has put in pedestrian refuges. That's why we have more, and this lady was 20 metres from signalised crossing. Alright? She could have had all the protection of a pedestrian crossing, but chose to walk. I had a taxi driver told me he actually saw an older lady try to cross Summer Street, and you know the ridge and the divider in the middle of the street. When she went to pick up her leg, she tripped and fell backwards into the path of the taxi. For some reason, the taxi driver, being experienced around Orange, he kind of slowed down and thought, you know, what could possibly go wrong here? That lady was very, very lucky indeed. And she didn't kill herself by hitting her head on the road. So when you have to go after a certain age to get your licence renewed nearly every year, it's a daunting task. But there are ways you can make it easier for yourself. And one of those is the Learner Driver Knowledge Test or quiz that is on the Transport website, and you can practice the questions and answers. And it's free, and it's not a bad idea to spend an afternoon every now and again having a go. You don't, you know, it's bad enough going for a test of any type, and you don't want to be cramming things at the very last minute. And it doesn't hurt to know to refresh yourself on the road rules, because you do the wrong thing or park too close to a corner, the police will come and give you a fine, and those fines are quite heavy. So that's another thing you can do to start keeping yourself up to date with the road rules. And don't forget, the road rules have changed since you got your licence, and it's your job as a citizen to keep up with those changes. One of the road rules, because I'm from Victoria, that's different to New South Wales, and I think we're all saying now, is that when you're turning right across oncoming traffic, I'm going to get this wrong. I always do it because you know what it's like when you learn something. The car coming towards you had to give way to you. Now, it's the other way around. You have to give way to the person turning left. And I swear to God, where I am at March, on the corner of Lord's Place and March Street, at least once a week, I have to think to myself, no, wait a minute, who gives way? Because that's what I was trained to do in Victoria for the first 10, 15 years of my driving life. Did I? Yeah, I always do. I'm sorry, but you get my point. You learn something and then it's very hard to get it out of your... It's the other way around, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, that bribing driving officials to pass the test is against the law, and I'm sure, we've all seen it on The Current Affair or 60 Minutes about it in the past, and it's now made it so hard that, it's fines or imprisonment. You've got to do your driving test. You've got two things you can do. You can take it with an accredited driving instructor, okay, which you have to pay for. But I assure you, you need to know the driving rules before you do that, otherwise you're wasting your money. Or you can take the driving test at a service centre here at Transport for New South Wales Service Centre. You're only allowed 3 tries, okay, because it's free. That's why you need to. And I am going to give you the best piece of advice, because it doesn't matter how good you drive on that day, if you break 2 cardinal rules, you fail. And they are, if you don't stick to the speed limit. Okay, which means 85% of the driving population of Orange will immediately fail. And I don't care what age they are. The second thing is another thing, which I'd say 90% of the population of Orange would fail, is when you stop at a stop sign, you've got to stop before the white line. You can't stop on it, and you can't stop over it. Doesn't matter how good you drive, instant failure. And the reason they put that in these booklets is because that's why everyone fails. They can't. When we all learnt to drive, nobody ever talked about speed management. No one even thought about keeping to the speed limit. The speed limits were there, you did 10 or 15 over, no one cares. Well, it's not like that anymore. You've got to learn to keep to the speed limit. Now, once you practice that on an ongoing basis, so you've been doing 100k on Henry Park's Way, and you get to Manildra and you've got to go down to 50. Guess what? If you're 30 k's over, you're going to lose your licence. Never mind the fine, just straight losing your licence. So that's really important. When you go out, and the worst thing in the world is driving through the Blue Mountains, I have my sister or my husband, we have what we call a speed spotter, because it changes so quickly because of the environment, of the infrastructure, and the amount of roads that access and turning right, turning left, and the volume of traffic. There is a reason for that, but it's still hard for us, the driver coming in from the country, to keep on top of that. So in your practical assessment, you need to apply the road rules. That's why you should take the test on Transport for New South Wales. You need to always give way to pedestrians, okay? Oh, they should be doing it. Yes, they do. You need to give way to cyclists. You need to drive safely, which is the most misunderstood words. Now, I've got a little flyer on your tables, and it's called Be Seen, Be Safe, Drive with your headlights on 24/7. Now, why on earth? As someone said to me, and they're quite right, why do you need to have your headlights on during the day? You can't see the road better. Got nothing to do with the road. It's about other drivers seeing you. You're out on the road and you want to overtake. Okay? If the other driver has their lights on, you're going to see them much more easily than the shape of their car. Remember, all our country roads have trees on the side, a bit of shade, and then there's morning and afternoon, twilight. Now daylight savings over. We have all these kind of environmental and light issues. You need to be able to see when you're driving at 100 k's an hour, you're travelling at 27.8 metres a second. Okay? You're in the car. You're behind a truck. Is going to be so. I think I will overtake. And you have a peek around the truck. Okay? The driver that's way off hasn't got his lights on, and you don't see him. You don't see him. You have another peek, you still don't see him. So you go. You get halfway around the truck when you realise there's another car barrelling down at you. Many people, mainly males, will not put their foot on the brake and go back behind that truck or that vehicle. They'll gun it. Alright? And they're usually the people that end up in a head-on fatality, because there's no way. See, between the time that you had the first look, the second look, 27.8 metres a second, 56, 70 something, 100 metres have gone past. And that's you heading in that direction. If he or she is doing the same speed, and everyone's probably doing at least 10 to 15 k's over the speed limit, they're hurtling at you faster at the same distance. So you're converging on each other in a very, very tight envelope, and that's why we have so many fatalities. But if the driver had their headlights on, you would have noticed him at first, or her at first. Okay, I'm going to ask you all, when you're out driving and something moves, what do you do? Slow down? You slow down because why?
To get a better look.
So get a better look? Yeah. You've seen something move. Okay? That's called visual acuity. Your eyes have seen something move. You don't know, excuse me. Your brain has not even, Your brain has not even told you if it's a kangaroo, two crows flying off a dead carcass, a cow, a dog. You have no idea. All you know is that something's moved. And you need to hit the brakes. And that's visual acuity. That is probably one of your biggest defences. And when someone says to you, kangaroo, the thing that you should do, thank you so much, the thing that you should do is not ask where, another 27.8 metres while you're saying, where's the kangaroo? You need to hit the brake. Okay? People often say to be a safer driver in the country, you should have big bull bars on your car. And that works in some cases, But if you hit Skippy at 100 k's in full hop, okay, he comes over the bumper, in through the windscreen, and you don't want to be in the front seat of your car with an injured animal flying around. You'll end up crashing and dying. Okay, so the best thing to do, again, as we get older and our vision and our reaction times are changing all the time, is maybe it's best not to drive at night. I don't like driving at night. I met a group of German tourists in Sydney, and they asked me what I did, and stupidly enough, they stupidly asked me what I did, and then I told them. And they already had worked out, they were travelling around Australia, and they did not drive at night. And these were boys in their 20s, and they were full of mischief and, invincibility. And they said, we don't know how you people do it. Why would you do it? The risk, Germans being Germans, the risk is too strong, too high. They can come out. What about the cows? And there's always, cows breaking down a fence somewhere. And the roads that the local roads around Cabon, there's always cattle out on the roads, getting out. The other thing that people do on roads and helps you to be safer, sometimes people flash their lights at you, and I one day made a mistake thinking, well, I'm not speeding, why do I need to slow down? And I hit a couple of kangaroos. I was over a rise and I didn't know they were there. So again, slow down. At 100 kilometres an hour, regardless of your age, which is the legal speed limit on most of the roads, 5 minutes out of orange, in a crash, you're lucky to survive. If you have a great car, and you're wearing your seatbelts and you've got, what do they call them, airbags, etc., that's wonderful. But if you're an hour out of orange, someone's got to come across you. Someone's got to ring an ambulance. An ambulance has got to get out there. Then they've got to assess you. Then they're calling in the helicopter if it's really bad. And if it's really bad, at that stage, you get the idea that the risk really doesn't, the risk is a bit higher. There's not much in the way of rewards. And I don't want to scare you, but at the same time we need to be practical. And being practical is a way to be safe. The same with travelling a long distance. Some of you will have grandchildren and children living out of town, and you'll go and visit them, and you may get tired on that journey. Pull over somewhere safe and take a 15 to 20 minute power nap. Driver fatigue is one of the big killers of one of the three major causes of fatalities on our road. And good people who are doing all the right things can succumb to that issue. And I suggest to you, and I ask you, what do you do when you're tired out on the road? Has anyone got any quick suggestions?
Get out and go for a walk. Swap drivers.
Swap drivers? Have a nap. Yeah, a 15 to 20 minute nap. The only cure for fatigue is sleep. And international research scientists agree on that. It's not like climate change, they all agree on that. And what a power nap does for those long journeys is that it resets the body clock, it improves your situation awareness and your alertness. So that's why it's better than having a walk or a cup of coffee. It's also great to have a cup of coffee after it. So having a power nap, driving with your headlights on, avoiding risks, okay? Avoiding those risks like high volume traffic is always a good idea. Not always practical. when you see someone doing something what I would call dodgy, and today's idea of dodgy could be they're either on their mobile phone, they're tired, they're under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and they're driving a bit to the left and they're driving a bit to the right, and they get slower, they get faster. Your best to ease off the accelerator and move back and let whatever's going to play out happen. And the idea of increasing that distance between you and that dodgy vehicle is you don't want to be caught up in what happens. Remember, at 100 k's an hour, 27.8 meters a second, so when something goes wrong, 27.8 meters, you're on top of that too. You don't want to be there. You want to be back, rendering assistance if need be. But you need to ease off the accelerator, creating a buffer from the hazard by changing your position on the road or changing lanes. I have witnessed myself on roads around here where you couldn't overtake someone like that because the road wasn't wide enough to allow for erratic driving behaviour. So driving, operating controls on the vehicle by reducing speed, increasing the distance between you and the guy in front or woman in front, and the same thing for wet conditions. Some of the storms that we've had in the last few years are so heavy you can't drive in them. Your windscreen wipers can't keep up with it. I don't know what it's like up on the north and central coast, but we get some shockers in November around here, and it's best to pull over somewhere safe, put your hazard lights on, and wait it out. Okay. Always realise that we've improved our buses around Orange. We have a taxi service. Sometimes if you're going to the doctor and it could be a bit of a strain, that particular appointment, maybe it's better to go via taxi there and taxi back. Especially if you're getting something done with your eyes, the doctors will, advise you whether you should be going. But I hope I've told you the bad news, I've told you the good news, and I think part of the good news is that when you have control over the situation, you just need to modify it, and that is important. If you modify your driving to suit your level of expertise, and I'm not talking about you not being great drivers, I'm talking about the march of time we need to, make arrangements. Has anyone got any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have a comment or reaction to the driver simulators for
The question was my opinion. I really don't give out opinions because I work with research scientists, and I know a lot of people use them.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. The question was, so you say the question, it's your question.
Yeah, my question was, what is your reaction to the driver simulators that are about, particularly for learner drivers and students?
Okay.
It's a similar thing to probably what the aeroplane group, the pilots use, really.
Well, you're right, and that's the problem with it. The aircraft industry, including fighter pilots, the defence people, all use simulators. They don't even touch a plane until they've had X amount of training on simulators. The official word of Transport for New South Wales is we don't support them. Okay? There are people getting funding from the federal government for simulators. So it's not like our driver fatigue science where everyone agrees. There is some disagreement, and I'm not an expert to say one way or the other. It's frustrating, I must admit, and every couple of years I go back and ask, well, has our position changed? Okay, hope that helps. Anybody else?
Andrea, increasingly we're getting a lot more scooters and things on the footpath and roads, and as you know, there is talk about it actually being licensed.
I'm not sure what the government's going to do about that again, but as pedestrians, you need to be careful of those scooters. I think someone has already been killed by being knocked by a scooter, but also those mobility scooters. You know, we've had people killed here in Orange. All right, so I suppose mobility scooters and the e-scooters, you know, if you ban one, you're going to ban the other. I'll leave it to the powers that be. I see problems on both sides of that equation. But to you, the people, you need to look. When you drive like everyone's going to do the wrong thing. That's what I expect. Everyone to do the wrong thing. Even if I've got right away at intersections here in Orange, I take my foot off the accelerator and I'm looking. Because sure enough, someone's going to come through the stop sign or the give way sign. Sure enough. That would happen about once a week at least. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Could you give an answer for tailgaters? They had a truck all the way for about 30 kilometres sitting on the tail of it, country road, very narrow, nowhere to stop. And he just consistently, once he got on a downhill run, was up the back of it.
I know, it's absolutely frightening. A funny thing, someone wrote into my Facebook page, the Orange and Cabonne Road Safety Program has a Facebook page, and said, I like your videos, but could you do one on tailgating, please? And I actually came from communications today and said, look, a couple of people have been asking, we need to do some serious education on tailgating, and to the truck drivers as well as the general public. So, look, you're required by law to have a 3-second gap between you and the vehicle in front, okay? And yes, 90, I shouldn't say 90, I'm just picking a number off the top, but there are an awful lot of people who sit on your bumper bar. Of course, if you hit someone in the rear, the person that hits you is liable. But that doesn't help you. Any other questions? No? I think that might wrap it up. I don't know how long we've gone for, but I think I'm about... Okay.
I'm going to take a photo of Elizabeth presenting you with yours.
Yeah, you know, Dave would jump as the CEO of Orange. He's got this weekly newsletter. He loves photographs of doing something. Not that I'm suggesting I don't do anything. You've got my phone.
No, it's over there. Over that side. Okay, we'll come around this side.
Okay.
How about that for Tony's photo? Okay. So,
Yeah? Thank you so much.
okay. We're going to thank Andy very much for that. For those people that live out in this particular area and stuff there, you'll know her from the Plan B ads on television. Yes? Actually, are they statewide or are they just local?
They have gone statewide in the past, down the south coast and everything. Pound have went nationwide on social media.
Yes.
But yeah, so.
Actually, in the middle of that, when you're talking about the light fading and things there in the afternoons, you reminded me of an incident that I had myself.